Let's start with the Vikings of Philly on Thursday Night Football. The line opened at 7.5. It's at 7. We talk about the luck rankings all the time. Sean Kerner, Nick Giffen, Billy Ward. They put together this metric that basically finds the signal in all the noise of the randomness that happens in pro football. And last season, we ended up by the end of the year using it as a real sort of marker for how we were calibrating some of these games. This is the biggest luck game of the week, Minnesota Philly. And I went deep into the stats on this, so I'm curious to get your thoughts. Where are you at right now?
I'm hoping this gets to 6.5. That's the hope right now, is that the public keeps coming in on the Vikings, and this goes from 7.5 down to 7, down to 6.5. So, as someone that's going to back the Eagles, they just played a horrible game, and that's one of those where you kind of throw it out if you're the team itself. Maybe they'll watch the film on Monday and then they'll just throw it away because it was just totally useless. They got out game planned by Belichick, and that's why we love that Patriots team. Like, if they didn't give up that pick six and that turnover in their own red zone, completely different game. So the Eagles team, they had their sloppy game. They had their Super Bowl hangover game. Now they're coming home in a primetime game on Thursday night in a short week. That's just a tough spot for the Vikings. Not only are they traveling, they don't match up well against this Eagles team. And now there's reports out their center might be out and their right tackle might be out as well. So it could get ugly here really fast for a Vikings team that we all knew they overachieved last year. Anyone kept telling you they overachieved. They're not as good as their record said last year. This year, I feel like they're just going to go back to what they should have been, which is a 9-8, 8-9 kind of team. So won't be shocked to see them start the season 0-2. The pros were all over the Bucs last week, and the same scenario here. Like, the Eagles have the same setup. They have Smith and AJ Brown on the outside, two receivers that this Vikings team won't be able to cover. And we saw last week with Godwin and Mike Evans, they just kept getting open, even for Baker Mayfield. So I usually would bet a bounce back spot here for the Vikings, but we see it time and time again. These Thursday teams really favorite the home teams and the favorites, and it's just a bad matchup for this Vikings team. So I was kind of thinking Vikings when I was at 7.5. Once it got to 7, I was like, okay, now I'll just hopefully wait and let this get to 6.5 for this Eagles team.
Look, I think it could be headed that way. About 76% of the money right now is on the Vikings, and it did dip pretty quickly yesterday from 7.5 to 7. That Vikings team is really interesting. Like, they torched the Bucs. They should have won that game. That game came down to Kirk Cousins throwing a pick in the red zone.
Yeah.
At the end of the first half, they were up there. It was tied 10-10. They could have gone up 17-10, but their yards per pass attempt were huge. Their total yardage was huge. They had 3 bad turnovers, and they played Baker Mayfield ball against Baker Mayfield is what happened. That was it. That was the ball game right there.